We've all been there. You meet someone new or someone you kind of know. Start with the usual hi, hello, followed by go-to questions like what do you do? Or which team do you work in? And after a bit of back-and-forth awkward silence. I've experienced this many times, not just at work but in all sorts of social settings, like meeting a distant cousin at a wedding after years, or striking up a conversation with a random stranger at a bar. But what if you could talk to anyone and never run out of things to say? The truth is, we all have some level of social anxiety, which plays into our awkwardness, but we experience it differently. Personally, I unintentionally mastered the advanced levels of social awkwardness without any cheat codes. Over time, I developed 3 simple methods to talk to anyone and avoid awkwardness well, at least most of the time. At first, I blamed myself for being too shy, not confident enough, and just a little socially inept. But then I realized I was the complete opposite around people I felt comfortable with. So I asked myself, what's really happening? How can one person have such opposite personalities? The answer was eye-opening. Even though I'm an introvert, I don't have 2 personalities. And it wasn't even a confidence issue, it was a skill issue. I simply hadn't mastered the art of small talk. And just like learning to play an instrument or write poetry, speaking to people is a skill that can be developed with practice. Through years of trial and error and by observing people better than me, I realized that only 3 things matter when it comes to talking to anyone fluently and never running out of things to say. And the best part is, you can start using them immediately. Imagine someone says, I went to play golf over the weekend. You could respond with, oh, that's interesting, and then stare into space, embracing the awkward silence. Or you could ask intentional follow-up questions like, where do you usually play? Or how long have you been playing? This naturally leads to more questions like, do you play competitively? Or are you part of a club? Now, you might not care about golf at all, but first, this makes you seem genuinely interested in the conversation, or at least creates that perception. And second, it eliminates awkward silences while giving you control over the direction of the conversation. Because when you really think about it, a conversation is just a series of questions and answers. And the person who asks most of the questions usually controls it. But to do this well, you need to ask the right questions, which brings us to the second method. A common misconception is that to get better at speaking, you need to talk more, but paradoxically, to improve communication, you actually need to listen more. That means actively listening, doing nothing else but paying full attention. It's easy to let our minds drift, thinking about what to say next instead of truly hearing what's being said. This often results in irrelevant responses, adding more awkward moments to your collection. But when you listen intently, you can ask better questions, creating a smoother and more engaging conversation. As the famous quote goes, most people don't listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. Don't be that person, there are already too many of those. The final piece of the puzzle is finding common ground. We naturally click with people who share our backgrounds or interests. Sometimes, this is obvious, you both love golf. Other times, it takes more effort, but by asking the right questions, you'll eventually find something in common. Once you do, steer the conversation in that direction, and it will flow effortlessly. The truth is, some conversations will go nowhere, and awkward silences will happen. When they do, just learn to be comfortable with them. After all, it's just silence, and it will pass. But by following these 3 methods, most of the time, you'll be able to talk to anyone and never run out of things to say.